my recommendation to a partner is if you want to get serious in this space, go figure out what solution you're going to go sell, build your win formula, set how many goals you're going to do, and then build a territory plan.
We believe this time is like no other. We refer to these as the tectonic shifts.
All the hyperscalers in the world, if you add them all together, managed services will be 1.5 times larger.
Because it is the customer buying behavior that has created the need for all of us to rethink our models.
Until we have data quality, the effectiveness of AI cannot be realized, and effectiveness of the partnerships cannot be realized.
Can you figure out first what your purpose is and how Microsoft can support your purpose and how you can support Microsoft purpose? Now we have a partnership. It's the ultimate partnership.
Welcome to the Ultimate Guide to Partnering. I'm Vince Menzione, your host, and my mission is to help leaders like you achieve your greatest results through successful partnering. We just came off Ultimate Partner Live at Microsoft's Redmond campus, our most powerful event yet. Over 2 days, we gathered top leaders to tackle the real shifts shaping our industry. If you weren't in the room, this episode featuring Alistair Butler and Jen Weis of Microsoft and Steve Hale, a partner from SUSE, brings us to the conversation of the Acre of Diamonds and how to achieve your greatest results working with Microsoft. It'll bring us to the edge of what's next. So let's dive in now. So I'm excited to help lead this conversation with you all. And this has a very unique theme. It's called Acre of Diamonds. And anybody who knows about Acre of Diamonds, it's actually a fairly common term. It was a thesis. Russell Conwell, who created Temple University in Philadelphia, which has become an outstandingly successful university system, wrote this thesis about your Acre of Diamonds. And I've been talking about how Microsoft, especially its SME&C business, its small, medium enterprise and channel business, that mid-market is really your Acre of Diamonds, because so many partners tried to focus in on the very top of the tip of the top. And we talked about that yesterday. Nicole and I had that conversation about focusing in this area. So I'm thrilled to welcome on stage Alistair, Jennifer, and Steve. Thank you for joining us. Come on out. Come on out. Woohoo! We got a kick-ass team here, Jennifer.
Yeah, well,
so great to see you.
I heard that introduction,
Yeah.
and I'm a little...
Oops, I'm sorry. Whoops, I'm dropping things.
I'm going to grab it for you. Where'd it go?
Yeah, I didn't want to get, start attaching things. Good to see you, Alistair.
I don't think I can live up to that introduction.
We all kind of know that. So we've got an incredible panel conversation today, and I really wanted to spend some time with each of you. I thought we'd take a moment just from a context perspective and have you introduce, because I did a little bit of an introduction, but I didn't do it justice, to have each of you introduce yourselves, your roles in your organizations, and then we can talk about how do we take advantage of this business opportunity. So Steve, we'll start with you since.
Great to see you, Vince.
Great to see you, sir.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks so much for the invitation. I appreciate it. Real quick background. I think I've worked in 4 different buildings around campus here over my career, but right now I run software partnerships at SUSE, so it's really a pleasure to be here with all of you.
So great to have you in the room. Alistair?
Thank you for the opportunity. Lovely to be here, Vince. So good morning, everybody. My name's Alistair Butler. I run our mid-market West business here in our SME&C business.
Right, and you're even struggling with that. We used to call it SMC.
I know.
We,
on the day it happened, we SMEC now, but we've moved a little bit past that. There was intentionality for it, and our mid-market customers, we really wanted the enterprise piece in that small, medium enterprise and channels.
And just to find that the scope that you have, because it's a very significant, you talk about it very casually.
Yes.
You have a lot of customers in that market.
So I think many of you would understand Microsoft's regions and SME&C as its 4th region. That's a $72 billion business in of its own right. You can do the math on roughly what that's going to be in the US. But for me, I have small, medium corporate customers or enterprises, 5,000 of those through the western part of the US, yes.
Yeah, that's a very significant number.
Absolutely.
5,000 just in the US, in the western US.
Yeah, and then I have a peer, Noman Akhtar, who has a similar sized business on the east, and then we have a Canadian team and a LATAM team.
And after Jen, I'm going to ask you another question about how your team is organized as well.
Sure.
But Jen, kick ass, by the way. I do know. I've known you for many years. You have an excellent reputation from partners about the work that you do in helping organizations. And I got to see you up on stage yesterday as well. So.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me here. My role today is I'm actually a PDM in our global SI organization, but I heard Vince mention some of my history, and you talked to Lori this morning, and you talked to Alyssa this morning, and you're asking the number of years, and I started counting back, and I'm like, I've been in the Microsoft ecosystem for 30 years. So, and we were just joking.
Right out of school.
Yeah, we were just joking behind back there. I said, I was a Microsoft partner when I received a fax to put in internet email for a company with Microsoft Mail, and Exchange 4.0 beta was just coming out. So I've been in the Microsoft ecosystem since then. And I've worked for small SIs, I've worked for medium-sized SIs, working on that SMC, or back then, I don't remember, it was called
SMB, I think we called
yes,
it.
it was called something
yes.
else. And then I heard you mention CDW. as the director of software sales at CDW, and that's where kind of the conversation today will come in from what I did at CDW to take it from a $200 million to $1 billion Microsoft business there just in a number of years, and then went to an ISV. So I got the ISV part of it, a partner-to-partner part of it, and now I'm sitting here representing kind of the Microsoft PDM. But a lot of the stuff I do now is all the stuff that I did when I was a partner, and how I learned to be agile and really evaluate every year what's Microsoft doing and how am I going to have to change the business and change it really quick to drive results.
And the work that you do is very instructional to organizations like Steve's about how to align for success. So I think there'll be a little bit of a cross conversation here.
You bet.
But Alistair, I want to spend a moment here, a little bit more of a double click. So first of all, 5,000 organizations is fairly significant. For any of you who don't know, there's probably about 11,000 enterprise organizations at the very, very top of the pyramid, maybe even less than that today, because it's winnowed down.
Yes.
So you've got a number almost equal to that, just in the Western United States. And then you have sellers, you have leaders, you have managers or leaders underneath you as well. Talk about how your organization is structured a little bit for the partners in the room.
Yeah, very happy to. So one of the things that within Microsoft and NCAPS, the way we try to run the business, of course, is with consistency. So just like leaders in the strategic parts of our business, where they have an account team unit, an ATU, and then those are supported by our STUs, our specialist technical units. We're exactly the same. We're exactly the same. So we have an ATU layer, and then we have our STUs in the Azure space, in BizApps, and in modern work and security. So, there's a number of layers to that to get to that amount of reach or so. But I think one of the things that I would stress as to where we're at now as a company, it was a very intentional decision by Satya and Amy to create SME&C as it is now. This was a decision 18 months ago, into Microsoft's fourth region. Prior to, and Forever and a Day, we were actually part of the geographic regions. We would roll up to them. But it's now Microsoft's largest region at $72 billion. It's also its fastest growing region at $72 billion. So for any of you who have been around us for a while or worked with big companies, when a decision like that is made, it's big. All of a sudden, we're not sharing resources with strategics. We have our own teams with GPS, with our SE&O teams, marketing, and that will take time to mature in of itself. But with the new leader that we have, we're very much elevating the investment into the segment, and that should be opportunity for all of us.
And I just want to differentiate for those who are watching and paying attention today, because you bring up some interesting points. If you've been around Microsoft long enough, as I have, it was sort of, we didn't pay enough attention, we didn't have the right rigor, and we didn't have consistency. Because every region, every geography, every industry, in fact, public sector being one of the industries, would treat that part of the market differently.
and we didn't put the right level of investments, depending on where the investments got laid across the business. By creating that fourth region, you created a level of consistency, dependability about execution, structure, organizational structure, and investments that did not exist in Microsoft. And that's why, to me, it has become an Acre of Diamonds.
Completely. And to suggest that, our success will come with the partner community as part of that segment is a gross understatement.
Yes.
Everything that we are building in our programs, in our MSEM phases, in our training and enablement, is now going very much through partner lens, and that's why it's so wonderful to be chatting to a few folks here today.
And just a few years ago, in fact, when it was first stood up, it wasn't getting the same level of attention from the partners. It's one of the reasons why we have you here.
Yes.
And it also wasn't set up in a way where the commitment wasn't quite there. I remember it was about a few years ago, first conversations I had with then the leader of the organization, who was Kevin Piesker, about doubling down. Like, it was the first foot in the ground saying, we are going to double down now. We're going to bring partners in. You mentioned that having the scale of the organization, but you also have, I'll suggest, your organization is structured so that you have maybe more accounts per rep.
Yes.
Than when you get up to the very largest enterprises accounts. So I might have Coca-Cola, and that's my only account. But when I get into, which is fairly significant organizations, what you call small, medium enterprise, they're still very big companies. In most companies, they are enterprise, big enterprises.
In other technology companies, completely, it just speaks to Microsoft's reach and brand, and what's over a $200 billion business today. But so look, at the higher strategics, that's a 1 to 5 type ratio in accounts. Then we get into majors growth. That might be anything from 5 to 20, and then it's our segment that comes in. We top out at 50, 60 accounts per rep, but it's in that ATU and STU model, which we actually run in pretty thoughtfully designed pods. So small teams are really hunting in those pods with their partners, and the ability to reach the customers with that is with those partners.
I want to dive in a little bit, and I'm going to ask the perspective from the partners in the room, Steve, you, and then also get Jennifer's perspective as a partner development manager. How do you engage? How do you find the engagement? What is the type of engagement you do? What are best practices you can share with our community here?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think if I'm sitting in the audience, and I don't know what your size and scale is, if you're a smaller consulting partner or you're a part of a larger technology company, an ISV or whomever, the way I look at it is sort of the so what factor. Like, what we know that we have a huge ecosystem to be able to tap into with Microsoft. And so, at the end of the day, how do we do it? How do we do that in a way that's going to help us drive solution selling? So we were talking a little bit earlier when I did this at Microsoft, I just remember Ballmer would pound his hand on the conference room table, and he said, "The field is always right unless proven wrong." So the business units were already saying, hey, we're going to build these solutions, we're going to have this stuff, we're going to go to market, and he would come in and pound his fist and say that the field is always right unless proven wrong. And so what he meant by that, where we're preparing for the mid-year reviews, right, with the 90-slide deck and then the 6-point font, was all about, like, how are we going to drive customer solution value? And that was the part that I loved about it, right? That's where, if you think about the history, you're talking about ATU and the whole design of what happened back in Tailwind and all of that, what it was all about was making sure that we have a solution-oriented selling mechanism that is integrated with partner solutions. And that's the part that's beautiful about it. Microsoft has always been true to that part of it. And if you think about the strategy of it, it's very different than, let's say, I mean, not to say one is better than the other, but like an Oracle model or whatever, where it was a very direct selling motion. At Microsoft, what Ballmer did, which was cool, was he peeled off a little bit of services margin out of the consulting business and fed it into the ecosystem part of it to help develop ISVs and integrator partners. We were talking a little bit earlier about your history at Burby, and that is what it's all about. Is like, if you really are in the ecosystem selling business, which Microsoft is, that's great. Okay, prove it, and then show us that you have an alignment to that model in terms of how you do investment and help the businesses grow, and that literally becomes the ecosystem multiplier.
So what instruction would you have for the partners in the room and those watching us on live stream? How to engage with Alistair's organization?
Very selfishly, I would say figure out how to use their money.
Okay.
I mean, to be fair, right? Yeah. And the reason why I say that is because if you look at the consumption model that we want to drive with Azure, right? You want to try and figure out, like, how do you tap into that part of it to be able to drive those, look, at the end of the day, the way I think about it when I talk to my sales teams, it's all about the workloads. It's about what is driving the customer investment. Where is the money coming from? Where is the vein of gold for, I don't care if it's a huge, Coca-Cola or all the way down to a smaller company that's trying to innovate. They want to innovate. They need partnerships that are going to help them go drive this. This is stuff that I did with, after I left Microsoft, I was with Bridge Partners here, as a consulting firm that's very near and dear to my heart. But, it's going from a massive company down into a consulting organization that's always thinking about customer value and solutions. So that would be, figure out how to tap into the wealth of Microsoft, but also at the same time be very, very focused on the workloads and the customer solution value.
How do you get relevant? Jen, I want to come to you because I know you spend a lot of time with organizations and their lack of relevancy, their lack of engagement models. And I know there's some points you want to share on that as well.
Well, it builds on what you both were saying and using Microsoft's money. And to be blunt, so when you mentioned Burby, I was at Burby for years. Burby was acquired by CDW, then I was at CDW, then I went for a startup ISV. But that was exactly it. We would sit down every year. First off, being relevant as a partner, no offense, it's not about the partner's model and what the partner does. If you want to be relevant to Microsoft, you have to do it the Microsoft way. So every year we knew changes were coming. Microsoft is not simple, it's complicated, but at the end of the day, it's not. If you just take that ego out of the way and you say, okay, Microsoft's gonna come out in the June timeframe and they're gonna come out with their incentives and investments, and that's how their sales reps are compensated. So every year I sit down with that plan and I would go through it and I would say, okay, how am I going to make money off this plan? And how am I going to model our win formula to be able to go after, you said, the solution areas? How am I going to do that? And I'll put a plan together. And then I think it was Lori or Alyssa said, then I go to the executive board and say, okay, I plan to bring in, you gave me a quota of whatever million in profit, right? This is how I'm going to make $1 million in profit. But I'm going to need to make these 3 changes. Do I have your buy-in? And every year they're like, go for it. And we did it, and I would deliver. And then the next year I'm like, okay, here we go again. But if you go into it with the attitude of, it is what it is, yes, you can influence changes for future years, but you're not going to change it that year. So you just accept what it is, and then you build a strategy to maximize the heck out of it and earn. Microsoft, we when we were at Burby, they were our biggest customer because we used their funding, but we used it and delivered results and delivered results and delivered results. And so we even went to Microsoft many times and said, I think we can do it better, but we're going to need investment from you, right? And we want to bring this program, and they'd go, okay, you did it last year, so go ahead, do it again. So that's how we built a great, strong Microsoft practice in consulting. Then we brought it over to CDW, and then we brought it to the licensing piece of it, and we just build kind of a program sales. And there's really 3 elements to that. The first element is, someone was mentioning it, the maniacal focus, right? The first element is everybody on your team has to know what you're actually doing. Our goal is to drive X. And this is how we're going to do it. We built a win formula. Well, you have to have this marketing funnel. Then from this marketing funnel, you then deliver this and train your sales reps on this. And you build that whole win formula from your account-based marketing to your hero offer. And you go through those pieces of it. And then you just turn around and deliver. But you needed that. You needed the executive buy-in. So you had to have from top down. If it's just alliance-driven, and it was mentioned this morning, it doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
And so that's what we did, we did it really quick and really agile, and we just repeated that motion and created that flywheel.
Yeah,
and
but you
that's what
got
we
the
did.
executive commitment within your organization,
I got the
right?
executive
Okay.
commitment within the organization. So we're doing that with partners now. We worked on a majors motion, 15 partners. We walked in, it's like half the partners got it, and they're like, yep, we're gonna adopt it, and they're crushing it just in the last 2 months. Some of the other partners are still trying to decide what solution, and so they're a little bit farther behind. So that's my recommendation. Build a plan, get executive buy-in, then build your win formula with all the roles aligned, and then just go deliver. But you make it easy and you make it simple.
Yeah, and you mentioned all the roles. This is with the Alyssa conversation
Yeah.
earlier, right? Engineering, go-to-market,
Yep.
co-selling, your alliance team, your executive team at the executive level to executive level.
What I loved about what Alyssa said earlier was you've got to have the technology piece of it.
Yeah.
Like if you have that, then you're good to go. And then the co-selling motion, right, which is what they're really.
That's going to be the next question.
That's where we're going to roll into. But I loved her point of view on that, and I think it's like how do we connect with the machinery that is happening at Microsoft that creates this scale, and how do we do that in a way that's going to be profitable for all of us and help our customers?
So Alistair, thousands of sellers, right, within the organization. How do I get their attention, right? I'm one of 165,000 partners in the Americas, Lori Borg mentioned earlier.
Yes.
So that's an incredible number of partners tapping on the door, on your door.
It's a question I get a lot. And we still okay on Mike? You can-
Yeah,
yes.
we're good. You're good. You're good.
So it's a question I get a lot, and it's easier to answer now that we are specifically a fourth region. If you're serious about that customer segment, you really need to think through, firstly, making sure your sales organization has some dedication to that customer segment. Just speaking very openly, if my sellers are engaged with a partner and, the first time they're together and they have an open discussion, okay, so how do you look at us? And they've got 7 strategic accounts and 4, they turn off straight away, right? Because my sellers are trying to engage really with anything from 2 to 5 partners to run their scale business.
Yeah.
Okay, so a lot of that's regionally based. A lot of that, of course, is still into its relationships and connectivity and rhythms that are running in the business. But if you're serious about wanting to grow with us, an SME&C business, really think about segmenting your own sales teams for that. That's number one. And I can give a very brief example. We had a GSI, huge player, you would all know them, came to myself last summer. We're making plans for 6 months away. We're actually going to double down a la Kevin Peekster and create a mid-market segment. What's your advice? I showed them my ATU structure. If you align to that, when you're ready and you can demonstrate the right skill base and understanding of MSEM, I'll make all the introductions.
MSEM, yes.
The executive team listened to that. They came back 3 months later and they showed us the plan, and they were activated across my sales team within 6 weeks.
Yeah.
It can be done. Now, there's an intention to that, and I think maybe just the final piece here, Vince, have an opinion that is in the segment enough white space for all of us. Have an opinion on what the solution areas that you have skills and expertise in, sustainable, and the industries where you have presence. It's a really difficult thing sometimes for a partner, and I've been around partners since the mid-90s, to actually be declarative. But when you share that opinion and your value proposition, the connection into the sales team is so much faster. It happens at the first meeting versus folks finding out at the 3rd or 4th, and I've just wasted 2 months of starting to, it's much, much better to be cleaner and clearer. All of our growth is in the middle part of our MAL even. And we want partners to help us
account
scale.
list, by the way,
Absolutely.
MAL, for those who don't know it. Yep. You mentioned MSEM. I'd like to double click on MSEM a little bit. For those who don't know MSEM, we've actually had speakers talk about MSEM specifically on stage. It's a great topic, but I think we should double click. And I think amongst the three of you, you probably have a different perspective on here. But I think I want to get all three of your perspectives on MSEM and how to engage as a partner to drive MSEM.
So at the end of the day, it's a framework, it's a methodology to be able to help us be able to, I think, strategically and tactically sell better, right? So, I mean, we got all the acronyms in the world. At the end of the day, I think it comes down to how do we have a connected fabric in terms of how we do solution selling together and how we deliver, that value and messaging. It was funny, I was at a dinner and a customer came over. It was a partner dinner. And the customer came over and they said, and I'm not going to say who the partners were, but the customer came over and said, hey, are you guys actually working together? Like we were having a conversation with the technology company. And the customer said to us, I love that about you guys. I love that you're actually sitting down and talking about technology working together to help us deliver value in my organization. So MSEM, and you're the expert on it. It's a framework, it's a methodology. That's great. How does it help us? How do we make it real? And how does it deliver customer solution value? Yeah. In my opinion.
Double click on me.
Yeah, well, with MSEM, I was talking earlier about the win formula.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the funding programs and different things. So within MSEM, there are the 5 stages. But within each stage, there's specific guidance given to the sellers on this is the halo conversation you have. This is the hero offer you pitch. And the hero offer usually comes with funding to deliver something. So, and there's
I think we actually have a slide that might help us along here, actually. So let's go.
There's even campaigns in a box, right? In marketing materials. I was shocked when I started to work with some of the partners, even some of my own, but the partners that weren't mine, and I would ask, do you know what MSEM is? To their sales teams, and the sales teams are like, no. Yeah. And I'm like, okay. And then I would say, show me your strategy, or win formula for how you're going to land this. And they're like, well, here's our offer. Here's the technical capabilities. And that's not a strategy. That's a technical solution. So we would go through the win formula that you see there. We would go through and say, well, what are you doing at each stage? But there's a link on this slide too. I said, Microsoft has this built already. You just need to go get the material and make it your own, right? Go get the campaign in a box. Go get the Halo conversations and material. Go get the hero offer. Just make it your own. And so we help optimize that they have a strategy. And then it's like, now we just go land this with your sellers. And that's, you got to build that formula to be able to land it. And if you follow the Microsoft methodology, then when you go in and talk to your sellers, it's really easy because you're talking the same language. You have the ability to collaborate and sit down at the table together because you're talking the same thing. And it gives the partners the ability to fast track going to market, but then make it their own.
Yeah. And Alistair, this is very deliberate at Microsoft. When I was a Microsoft GM, we didn't have this. No. Everybody followed their own methodology. You have a common language that when you're having reviews, funnel reviews, any business reviews in your business, you're talking through this, right?
Absolutely. So MCAPS is a 100,000 people organization that is wired to this. Yeah. And it's been around a few years now, but the commitment to it, and I suspect the longevity will continue because it really has given so much more clarity and an understanding of our own business as to how competitive we are, what the customer experience is. Dare I even say, what's the profitability profile for our partners in that? And yes, we live by this. For any operational review, it is so important that your sales teams have an appreciation of this. Yes. They don't need depth, but they need an appreciation. But you must have at least one person, or at least a small team, really, understanding the programs, how you leverage the dollars, the timings, the announcements, to actually filter all of that into your sales team. That is a critical point as to doing business with us, really. But yes, for anything that we're doing on our pipelines and looking at program activations and anything that you might imagine on a sales dashboard finds its way back to this.
Steve, when your sellers, you're working with your organization and your sellers, how are you implementing MSEM to help them be successful working with Microsoft?
You know, I think at the end of the day, when we talk about leveraging our partnership and our center of gravity with a partnership like Microsoft, at the end of the day, like, you know, and I'm not trying to get into like product-specific stuff, but what we want to do is make sure that our delivery of what we're trying to focus on, we talked about this earlier, which is be really clear about what we're going to do, and also be clear about what we're not going to do. Yeah. Because otherwise we can just be random, and we can, you know, say we're going to do all of these things, and we're trying to conquer the world. And that's why Microsoft did the segmentation in the first place, right? And that's why we're trying to get very focused. So if you think about, I mean, the original ATU piece, they used to call it the atomic unit, and so it became the account team unit, all of that stuff, and now it's being implemented, and they're doing it for a reason. And to Alistair's point, is like, are we going to focus on mid-market customers, or, you know, be dedicated to that, be clear about what you're going to do, and be really clear about what you're not going to do, and prioritize.
There's a little piece here to add as well, particularly for the partner community, for the segment that I'm part of. Different to our strategics who have the CSUs in stages 4 and 5. You'll see, ladies and gentlemen, realize value and manage and optimize. We have a lot of Microsoft people around those. Those don't exist in our segment, in SME and C. We are fully committed to that being a partner delivered and lifecycle delivered with your services. Right. So where we coach our sales teams much more in recent years is the connectivity into the partner base, such that we're getting actually an understanding of your services. And when we're together in the customer, that's a really positive thing. Yeah. And many, many changes have happened in a very short period of time that we're really positive about. Lots of energy going into it, and even in our CSP program that plays very, cloud solution partner program that plays very prevalently here, good profitability and margin for our partners in that aspect.
That comes back to the IDC study that we talked about yesterday. And was it $8.65 of services revenue for partners for every dollar of Microsoft commitment? And I think the point you're making too is you don't have this massive consulting services organization. You really need the partners in the room here to drive that.
We do, and there was even an organizational announcement where folks in our global solution partner teams even joined us. So we're now one organization. Yes. Obviously, that cements the commitment to that part of our strategy.
That's right. So Nicole's organization is part of your same organization that you sit in now. So it's really intertwined the partners into the business. Anything else we should add?
Yeah, well, I was just going to add, and I talked about it yesterday in the breakout session if you attended, is the other thing that I'm doing with partners that is coaching them on how to do account planning. Yeah. And we were helping them to understand that Microsoft in the enterprise builds these 4 segments in their account plan, but in the SME&C, it just doesn't roll off the tongue.
That's why they're using SMEC.
That sounds terrible. You build a territory plan, and you mentioned another partner that came to you guys and said, we're going to invest in this. So my recommendation to a partner is, if you want to get serious in this space, go figure out what solution you're going to go sell, build your win formula, set how many goals you're going to do, and then build a territory plan, you know, so that you can come to the teams and say, I'm going after this market or this industry. I have a target list of 100 accounts. My goal is to close 20 deals, and this is how I'm structuring accountability and ownership within me, my partner organization, and we'll align with you on the blue stages on there, and then once we're done with that, then we go deliver the purple stages, because there's no CSU. Yeah. So it's not complicated. It's complicated to learn how to put it together, but once you know how to put these things together, it's not complicated.
And then my best sellers, working with their 3 to 5 partners on their territory plans, are doing exactly what Steve was suggesting, where there's clear delineation on who's on first, who's on second within that, under a common language. It is designed well. It is designed simply. And the partners where we do it the best with, we just fly.
I love it.
The cool thing about Microsoft is that they will get super, super complex about everything, but then they generally will boil it back up into something that's executable, and that's what I love about it. I mean, they wrote the book on co-sell. And so like you talk about MSEM and all the acronyms and blah, 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 all that kind of stuff, but at the end of the day, they really know what they're doing, and if you tap into that method and go along with the acronyms and figure out how the machinery works, it's a great ecosystem to be a part of. It really is.
Well, we are up on time. We promised everybody a break. Hopefully you'll all be around for networking for a little while. I know Jen was leading a session yesterday. There's a lot of great knowledge in the room here on how to engage with Microsoft to be more successful driving your business. And if you haven't, we actually have a double click on MSEM as a video that's in our Ultimate Partner. If you go to Ultimate Partner website on YouTube, or even the ultimatepartner.com and sift through our search on MSEM, you're going to find some great instruction on what MSEM is and how to engage with MSEM. So, and I know we could spend hours on MSEM here, and we have some great experts who can take you through this. So I want to thank each of you. Great conversation today. For our partners, this is how you need to engage. This is where the Acre of Diamonds is for each of you. So I want to thank you all for being part of this conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All of you.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Ultimate Guide to Partnering. We're bringing these episodes to you to help you level up your strategy. If you haven't yet, now's the time to take action and think about joining our community. We created a unique place, UPX, or Ultimate Partner Experience, where leaders come to learn from each other. It's more than a community, it's your competitive edge. With insider insights, real-time education, and direct access to people who are driving the ecosystem forward, UPX helps you get results. And we're just getting started. We've got big plans for you this summer, as we're taking this studio and we'll be hosting live stream and digital events here, and it's all coming to you soon. So visit our website, theultimatepartner.com, to learn more and join us. Now's the time to take your partnerships to the next level.